I think we have quorum. Senator Decoit and Senator Favela are on, I believe. Okay. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Committee on Commerce and Consumer Protection. This is Wednesday, February 23, and we are at 9:30 a.m. and we have a decision-making agenda. And I just want to double check. You'll split this up. I'll take some of them. Let's see. I see in the conference room with me is Senator Nishihara. I see Senator Decoit on Zoom and Senator Favela. So members, if you are all ready, we will proceed. I sent decision-making notes out to everyone, so hopefully you all got them. If there's any issues as we go forward, please let me know. The first bill on our decision-making agenda for February 23 is Senate Bill 2798 relating to veterinary medicine. Authorizes the board to grant temporary courtesy and relief permits for out-of-state veterinarians, permits licensed veterinarians to practice veterinary telemedicine, and allows for internal veterinary school graduates to qualify for the licensure exam. Chair recommends that we pass this measure with amendments. We got an amendment. We're taking an amendment from the Department of Ag, from the Hawaii Veterinary Medical Association. They are clarifying amendments, as well as a clarifying amendment from the Hawaii Board of Veterinary Medicine, such as using Hawaii licensed instead of board licensed, as other places can be board licensed. Referring to it as veterinary telemedicine, and calling the folks that are the individuals that are being treated by veterinarians animals and not patients. And there's a few other clarifying amendments to ensure consistency with the FDA and CVPR definitions regarding telemedicine. And we're going to give this a good effective date of 7/1/2024. And of course, there are some technical non-substantive amendments that SMA recommended. Any questions or concerns with that recommendation? I see Senator Chang as well. So if there's no questions, the recommendation is to pass Senate Bill 2998 with amendments. Chair votes aye. 2798, that's what I said, I believe. Okay.
Yep. Okay. Senator Chang,
Aye.
Senator Decoit,
Aye.
Nishar votes aye, Senator Revere,
Excused.
excused, Senator San Buenaventura,
Excused.
excused, Senator Favela.
Aye.
Okay, motion's adopted.
Thank you, members. The next item on our agenda is Senate Bill 2986 relating to hemp. Remove certain duplicative regulations imposed on hemp producers in the state, allows hemp producers to sell biomass directly to consumers, requires that hemp produced in the state is labeled as Hawaii produced, and that hemp produced outside of the state is labeled with the appropriate origin. Chair recommends that, this came to us from AEN, by the way. Chair recommends that we pass this with some technical non-substantive amendments that were identified by SMA, as well as amendments clarifying that all hemp producers must be licensed by the USDOA, Department of Agriculture, and follow all the inspections and sampling rules and protocols, that the Hawaii Department of Agriculture can enforce the rules and can levy penalties for growing hemp without a USDA issued license. Add hemp producer language to page 8, section 2, add a definition of hemp processors, retain section 1041-42B of the Hawaii Revised Statutes, which requires hemp producers to report any transportation of raw hemp flower to the Hawaii Department of Agriculture. The measure is to take effect upon approval and be repealed on 7/1/2027 to ensure an review of the law's implementation. Any questions or concerns? Noting the presence of Senator Riviere, thank you for joining us this morning. Hearing no concerns, Chair recommends we pass this with amendments. Chair votes aye.
Senator Chang,
Aye.
Senator Decoy,
Aye.
Senator Michelle votes aye, Senator Revere,
Aye.
Senator San Ventura.
Aye.
Oh, good. Senator Pavella.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, members. The next item on our decision-making agenda is Senate Bill 2888, Senate Draft 1, relating to economic development. This came to us from AEN, joined by Health. It establishes the Access to Local Food Act to allow cottage food operations to sell cottage food products under certain conditions upon receiving a permit from the Department of Health. It has a effective date. Chair recommends that we pass this measure with technical, non-substantive amendments for clarity and consistency. And let's give it a clean effective date of 1/1/2023. Any questions or concerns? If not, chair votes aye.
Of the members present, any voting in with reservations or in opposition? Seeing none, motion adopted.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda this morning is Senate Bill 2187, Senate Draft 1, relating to school-based health services. This came to us from a joint combination of education and health. It includes advanced practice registered nurses with prescriptive authority in the list of healthcare professionals authorized to administer medication to public school students, requires administration of the medication to be approved by the Department of Health or other on-campus school-based healthcare provider pursuant to a written agreement with the Department of Education. Chair recommends that we pass this measure with some technical amendments identified by SMA and amendments that DOE, the more technical kinds of amendments that DOE recommended in their testimony. Any questions or concerns? If not, chair votes aye.
Of the members present, any voting with reservations or in opposition? Seeing none, motion adopted.
Thank you, members. The next item on our agenda is Senate Bill 2584, Senate Draft 1, relating to energy interconnection. This came to us from EET, introduced by our vice chair. Directs the Public Utilities Commission to adopt guidelines for interconnection applications that would trigger distribution, transmission, or other utility infrastructure upgrade costs in excess of a threshold determined by the commission. Unfortunately, there are a number of issues with this measure that seem to be beyond the ability of the chair to correct. So we are going to need to defer this measure indefinitely. The next measure is Senate Bill 2171, Senate Draft 1, relating to energy, authorizes independent generators of renewable energy to wheel the renewable electricity they produce to users of renewable energy under administrative rules established by the PUC Commission. This came to us from EET. Chair recommends that we defer this one indefinitely to allow the PUC to continue the work that it's already started in this area, as there is a commitment by the PUC to move forward and address issues raised in this measure, and that chair believes is the appropriate place to take those matters up. The next item on our agenda is Senate Bill 3034, Senate Draft 1, relating to joint contractor or subcontractor listing. This came to us from GBO, and it was part of the governor's package. Clarifies the listing of contractors and subcontractors required for construction bids under section 103D-302 Hawaii revised statutes. Chair recommends that we pass with amendments that came to us from the General Contractors Association, noting that subcontractor specialties are required to be listed and delete the joint contractor listing requirement. Any questions or concerns? If not, pass Senate Bill 3034, Senate Draft 1 with amendments. Chair votes aye.
Of the members present, any voting in opposition or reservation? Seeing none, motion is adopted.
The next item is Senate Bill 3038 relating to information privacy and security council. This is also a governor's package, came to us from GBO. Amends section 487N-5A Hawaii revised statutes to allow each member of the Information Privacy and Security Council to designate a designee to act on the member's behalf to ensure quorum. Chair recommends that we pass this measure unamended. Any questions or comments? If not, the recommendation is to pass Senate Bill 3038. Chair votes aye.
Of the members present, any voting with opposition or reservation? Seeing none, motion is adopted.
The next item is Senate Bill 2518, Senate Draft 1, relating to deceptive trade practices. Establish that gender-based pricing by manufacturers who sell the goods they manufacture to any person in the state for a price they set constitutes an unlawful deceptive trade practice. While I appreciate the introducer and the thoughts behind this, after conferring with people that actually do sell and import and all of that, it's just not a measure that we can move forward. So the chair recommends we defer this measure indefinitely. The next measure is Senate Bill 3281 relating to condominiums. This came to us from housing. Increases the minimum number of residential units in a condominium project that must be offered for sale to prospective owner occupants in the 30-day period following the initial date of the sale of the condominium from 50% to 90%. Chair recommends that we defer this measure indefinitely, although I appreciate the efforts of both the Housing Committee and the author. This just doesn't seem to be a measure that's going to be workable, so we're going to recommend that we defer it. The next item is Senate Bill 2709, Senate Draft 1, relating to contractors. This came to us from LCA. Clarifies that a licensed specialty contractor may perform incidental and supplemental work in crafts or trades other than in which the specialty contractor is licensed, provided that when measured by the cost and extent of work involved in executing the specialty contractor's work, the performance of the unlicensed work is substantially less than and only incidental and supplemental to the performance of work in the craft for which the specialty contractor is licensed. It has a defective date. Chair recommends that we pass this measure with amendments to add language to limit incidental and supplemental work to 5% of subcontractors' work when there are 2 or more subcontractors on the job and retain the defective date. That was recommended by the proponents of this measure. Any questions or concern? The recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair votes aye.
Of the members present, any voting with opposition or reservation? Seeing none, motion is adopted.
Thank you, members. The next item is Senate Bill 2017 relating to emergency medical services. This was offered from the State Fire Council through the committees here in the legislature. It repeals section 453-34D Hawaii revised statutes, which limits licensure as an emergency medical technician 1 to individuals whose practice is performed in a county with a population of 500,000 or greater. Chair recommends that we pass this measure with amendments to clarify the terminology regarding EMT and EMRs in this bill as noted by the Hawaii State Fire Council and the Hawaii Medical Board. Any questions or concerns? If not, the recommendation is to pass 2017 with amendments. Chair votes aye.
Of the members present, any voting with reservations or in opposition? Seeing none, motion is adopted.
Thank you, members. On Senate Bill 2268, Senate Draft 1 relating to infrastructure, requires the PUC, requires public utilities to consider the disruption to transportation as a criterion in planning future maintenance, has a defective date. Chair recommends that we defer this indefinitely because DOT and Hawaii Gas noted in their testimony that the Hawaii administrative rules already provide the policies, procedures, and regulations for DOT to do utility work within state roadways and rights of way. So this would actually be duplicitous. So we recommend that this measure is deferred indefinitely. Senate Bill 2275, Senate Draft 1 is the next on our agenda. This is relating to transportation network companies. Establish requirements and permitting procedures for transportation network companies and transportation network, should be drivers, not divers, makes permanent the motor vehicle insurance requirements for transportation network companies and transportation network company drivers in Act 236, Session Laws of Hawaii 2016. And it has a defective date. Chair recommends that we pass this with tech amendments and leave the defective date for consideration by the House. Any questions or comments? If not, the recommendation of the chair on Senate Bill 2275, Senate Draft 1 is to pass with tech amendments. Chair votes aye.
The members present, any voting with reservations or in opposition? Seeing none, motion is adopted.
Senate Bill 2444, Senate Draft 1 is the next item on our agenda, and this is relating to peer-to-peer car sharing insurance requirements. Recommendation is to pass with tech amendments recommended by SMA DCCA, retain the defective date, and add some of the Turo amendments as applicable to the SD1. So we're adding a definition of shared car. We're amending the definition of car sharing start time. We're changing the definition in car sharing termination time to mean earliest rather than latest, deleting some language that was duplicative of another section of the bill, change driver to owner, include authorized before the word operation to ensure that the shared car driver must be permitted and authorized to use the vehicle, and add language to the definition of peer-to-peer car sharing. It does not mean the business of a lessor as defined in section 437D-3, trying to make sure that this is not misrepresented as a rental car. Any questions or comments? If not, the recommendation is to pass 2444 with amendments. Chair votes aye.
Of the members present, any voting with opposition or in reservations? Seeing none, motion is adopted.
Thank you, members. The next item on our agenda is Senate Bill 2745, Senate Draft 1, relating to aircraft. This requires the Director of Transportation to adopt rules that require tour aircraft operators to have aircraft liability insurance coverage for an unspecified amount per person per incident. It has a defective date. Chair recommends that this measure is passed unamended. I know that there are so many neighborhoods where we need to get some of these activities under control, and hopefully this, as this measure advances, it will provide that. So the recommendation is to pass this measure 2745, Senate Draft 1, unamended. Are any questions or concerns from members? If not, recommendation is to pass unamended. Chair votes aye.
Of the members present, any voting with reservations or in opposition? Seeing none, motion is adopted.
The next item on our agenda is 43, Senate Draft 1, relating to fireworks. Requires importers of fireworks to obtain a license from Harbors Division of DOT or the applicable county. Requires annual reports to the legislature, and it has a defective date. Chair recommends that we pass this with amendments, those that were recommended by the Hawaii State Fire Council, keep the license fees and regulations with the county fire departments or the appropriate county authorities, and have county fire departments share information with state harbors, and county fire departments provide a report on their enforcement activities and any need for additional regulation 20 days prior to the convening of the 2023 regular legislative session. Any questions or comments, concerns? If not, the recommendation is to pass Senate Bill 3343 with amendments. Chair votes aye.
Of the members present, any voting with opposition or in reservation, seeing none, motion's adopted.
Thank you, members. That's the end of our agenda for today. Nice to see you all on the screen there, and hope everybody has a nice rest of their Wednesday. We'll see you later. Oh, we do have a 10 o'clock. Okay, so hang around. I'm sorry, we finished this one too fast.
Yeah.
So we'll be back with everybody in 10 minutes. So coffee break, stretch your legs, whatever, and we'll see you in 10 minutes. This one is adjourned, however. Good morning, everyone. We'll call the Committee on Commerce and Consumer Protection to order for our 10 o'clock agenda. We have 2 items on our agenda. The first one, and as I was doing this, I wasn't pulling up. We were having conversations and I didn't pull up my notes, but here they are. The first item on our agenda is Senate Bill 2073. Senate Draft 1 relating to telehealth. This allows for standard telephone contacts for telehealth purposes. Okay. I pulled up the wrong copy. So do you have the one with DM notes on it for me? Thank you. Okay. Recommendation is to pass with amendments. This is for Senate Bill 2073, Senate Draft 1 relating to telehealth. Adopt the policy in place for Medicare and Medicaid reimbursement, which is pay parity for telephonic and telehealth services. So if a person is on Medicare or Medicaid, their provider is getting reimbursed with parity for telephonic and telehealth services. Let's put a sunset date in of 5 years to review the impact if there's an increase in services to outlying rural areas, any impacts on the quality of care, does it increase or decrease productivity of providers, any measurable impacts on patient care, and note the experience in the committee report that the Waianae Coast Comprehensive Health Center has had using their telephonic and telehealth visits. Make clear in the committee report that this is not a new health benefit. It is a method of delivering healthcare benefits that are already covered. Anytime somebody doesn't want to do something new, they say, oh, it's going to be new and you've got to have a sunrise report and all that nonsense. So recommendation is to pass with amendments. Any questions or concerns from members? I see Senator Favela smiling at my comments. Okay, recommendation is to pass Senate Bill 2073 with amendments. Chair votes aye.
Senator Chang,
Aye.
Coit,
Aye.
Bishar votes aye. Senator Revere,
Aye.
Senator San Ventura,
Joy, are you there? Excused?
excuse, Senator Favela.
Aye.
Okay, motion is adopted.
Okay, thank you, members. The last item on our deferred agenda this morning is Senate Bill 2829 relating to mental health. It has an SB1 on it. Came to us from Health. It establishes provisional or associate level licensure requirements for marriage and family therapists, mental health counselors, and psychologists, and authorize insurance reimbursements in certain circumstances. Allow psychologists licensed applicants to sit for the licensing exam before completing other requirements. It has a effective date. Chair recommends that we pass this measure with amendments. We're going to delete references to the Director of DCCA on page 29, lines 14 to 20, and we're going to insert the following language. Each provisional license shall include the name and title of the supervising licensed psychologist or psychologists in the program described in subsection A2. A provisional licensee or licensed associate psychologist may only practice psychology under the direct supervision of the licensed psychologist, provided that one, the supervising licensed psychologist holds a current, active, and unencumbered license with the board, and the supervising licensed psychologist shall notify the board within 10 days of the termination or completion of the supervision. We are going to provide that the provisional license be valid for up to 3 years, and there's a possibility of renewing the license for an additional year. Currently, applicants for a permanent psychologist license are required to obtain 1 year, which is 1,900 hours of postdoctoral experience. This provision would provide the ability of provisional license holders to practice for an additional 2 years beyond what is required to obtain a permanent license. And we're deleting some unnecessary language. It has a defective date of 1/1/2050 to ensure that there will be continued discussion as this bill moves forward. Any questions or comments? If not, recommendation of the chair is to pass Senate Bill 2829 relating to mental health with amendments. Chair votes aye.
Committee Chair votes aye. Vice Chair
Aye.
Chang. Senator DeQuate.
Aye.
Senator Nishihara.
Aye.
I vote aye. Senator San Buenaventura.
Aye.
And Senator Favela.
Aye.
All in favor, adopted, Chair.
Okay, thank you. That brings us to the end of our agenda, right? Okay, thank you, members, for your participation. Nice to see some bright, shining faces, smiling faces on the television over there, and we are adjourned.